All right. Welcome back, everyone, to Freely Nourish, the podcast that empowers you to break the cycle of dieting by teaching you to nourish your body well. I am your host, registered dietitian Erin Casey, and I am joined today by our lovely guest, Miss Audrey Kintz, who I met several years ago, I think at this point, via TikTok. We connected over kind of just our, some shared goals of, kind of helping connect people with healthful, sustainable weight loss approaches. Audrey herself at that point had lost 180 pounds, very, mindfully and intentionally, as she will share with us in just a bit. And then over the last year, Audrey has had a few life changes, namely in the fact that she is now a mom, which is so exciting. I just love watching you grow into motherhood. But we're going to talk lots and lots about kind of how that has impacted your relationship with food, your body, all that good fun stuff. But Audrey is a weight loss coach, kind of in her own journey. It sounds like she learned a lot kind of about how to fix her relationship with food, how to fix her relationship with her body. So Audrey, take it away, kind of tell the people what you do, where we can find you on the social medias, and kind of, your mission in terms of kind of your coaching program and even just kind of, your own health.
Awesome. Well, hello. As Erin said, my name's Audrey. I'm on TikTok and Instagram as Mindful Odds. And I have that name because the whole basis of my journey was learning how to love myself. And so when I started my journey back in 2020, I was at like rock bottom. Like I weighed over 360 pounds. Yeah. My entire life was tiring. And at 21 years old, I should not be out of breath getting out of bed, not, having to take breaks going into Walmart from the parking lot. And so after when the pandemic started and people started discussing like their health and like, who's high risk, who's low risk, for COVID, not that I was so fearful, but like the fact that like I started evaluating my health and I'm like, I'm not healthy. I need to start taking charge of my life. So, started hiking, started eating healthier, started going to therapy, getting to the root of why I emotionally eat, learning how to cope, and then also learning about how the diet culture has like ingrained in us that the only way to lose weight is to cut out carbs, do these fad diets, do these fast fixes, right? The 7-day cleanses, juices. Like I was just talking to my aunt last night and she's like, I'm going to do this juice cleanse for 3 months to really, I'm like, your body needs food. But like, that is just
3 months.
I hate to be this way, but I give it 2 days. But you know what I mean? Like she does a lot of these like fad, like
Gotcha.
she convinced me keto was going to work a month ago. And here we are, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like now she's doing something else, but and so I realized what I was doing is just promoting that binge eating with these restrictive diets. And so when I started learning how to love myself, I started learning how to nourish myself. And so I actually had a friend who introduced me to mindful eating. I never knew what mindful eating was. And so I started learning, to really just take time to prepare your food, enjoy preparing your food, enjoy eating your food. And just like, it's not always like what you eat, but how you eat as well that matters with your health in general. And so she wasn't on a weight loss journey. And then the weight started coming off and I really just took off with it and started hiking, started walking. That was the movement I found I enjoyed. I hate going to the gym. Like Erin, I am so impressed by
I love the gym.
And when I was pregnant, I was like, I'm going to start weightlifting. Like, of course you want to do what you're not able to do.
Sure.
Right. And I was like,
please don't start that while you're like 7 months pregnant.
No,
not advised at all.
But I just remember on Instagram watching like one of your lifts.
Oh yeah.
Called? I'm not like a gym buff.
Yeah. Which one? What was it? Was it like
you were like lifting like I don't want to say like deadlift. I'm not a fitness
deadlift
guru.
Is when you like where you pull it off the floor. Bench press is, well, I'm assuming you know what a bench press is, or like squatting, or probably the three.
You were squatting. You were squatting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I want to do that. That is just so cool. Like I always
Yep.
get so empowered seeing women do that.
Yeah.
And I have not yet done that, but I'm only 7 weeks postpartum, so I'm not going to beat myself up. I just ordered
You're
2 pound
allowed to,
dumbbells.
to not be lifting that
I just
heavy.
I just ordered 2 pound dumbbells on Amazon. So
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
that's
All right. We love
that's my first step.
it.
But then, that's kind of where I'm kind of going into where beforehand, I would have had this all or nothing thinking.
Mhm,
Like, I need to
mhm.
go to the gym, start off on, I don't know, 25, 50 pounds, like
Yeah.
hurt myself.
Yep.
Or if I'm not hurting myself, get burnt out quickly because it's not sustainable.
Yep.
And then because I've deprived myself, I just gain it all back plus
Yep.
15 more pounds. So I'm sure if anybody's listening, we've all been there, done that.
Oh yeah. We've
All
all had
tried
that
this bad
cycle.
diet that
Yeah.
promises us you're going to lose 15 pounds. And maybe you do lose that 15 pounds, but then it's not sustainable. So I found sustainable ways that were really easy for me to follow. And so I lost 180 pounds. I maintained it all the way up until I got pregnant. Uh, and then before I get into my pregnancy, that is one of the reasons why I started coaching, is because I
Yeah.
realized talking to people, they're just like, what do you mean you don't eat 1,200 calories? What do you
Right.
mean you don't live at the gym?
Yeah.
And people were
Yeah.
just like, so like dumbfounded that like, there's no like, it just sounds so normal.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you can eat a serving of Oreos every night if you really wanted to? Like some of these
Hmm.
things that
Yeah.
the diet culture just tells you like that's not possible. And I'm trying to tell people the opposite. It
Yeah.
is possible. And I know you preach that too, where it's
Uh,
like, you know, really what you're doing when you eat a 1,200 calorie diet is you're neglecting your health.
mhm.
Your body's malnourished.
Yeah.
And so, and that was something else I learned too when I worked as an eating or as a behavioral health counselor at an eating disorder inpatient
Yeah.
unit,
That's right.
where
I
I
forgot that you
saw
did that. Yeah.
people who went to the extreme. I saw many patients there who had gastric bypass and who got addicted to losing weight,
Yeah.
and where it was glorified to the point where it wasn't, where it
Hmm.
was like, now all your organs are failing because you're so malnourished. And
Yeah.
so, not against surgery, not against medications, but so often the weight loss is just so glorified in a negative aspect. Um, so anyways, so that was part of my reason of becoming a weight loss coach, is I just
Oh.
wanted anybody who really does want that accountability, who
Yeah.
does want a more positive approach.
Yeah.
I even in my weight loss journey of losing 180 pounds, I still never entered a normal BMI.
Yep. I think
But
that's so important to say, because like I say all the time, like my BMI currently today is 32, and like I have
yeah,
no intention of changing it.
yeah,
It's
but it's like,
trash. Like,
but I know so many weight loss coaches or fitness coaches who are are more scale focused or
yeah.
more body focused and have
Hmm.
those tight abs and, lean body. And while that's great, I realize for a lot of people, it's not sustainable. And that's
Yeah.
something I learned when I got to my lowest weight. I was 175 or so.
Okay.
And it was so hard for me to maintain. My body did not like 175.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I found that 185 was my happy number.
Yeah.
And then, I was able to not count calories anymore. I ate mindfully, focused on listening to my hunger cues. I listened to, my body. What am I really craving? Am
Hmm.
I trying to suppress an emotion, or do I really crave it? So those are the things that I feel like people forget in a weight loss journey, is that
Yes.
the goal isn't to count calories forever or to be
No.
focused.
Yeah.
It's really just like, okay, I'm going to use this tool. I'm going
Yep.
to start adding more tools into my toolbox. And then eventually I won't have to be so like focused on
Rigid with
my
it. Yeah.
toolbox, because
Yep.
I will just have all those tools in hand that when those situations come up, you're fine.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
I think that's so important too, that like, because like to you, kind of, if you don't mind my asking, kind of what was the reason why your goal was originally 175? Like, was that something like somebody had suggested to you, or was it kind of like that was just like where you thought you should be, or wanted to be, or what was kind of the original reason for that? Just
So
like,
when my first goal weight ever was 185.
okay.
And that was this magic number I had placed in my head.
Okay.
So one thing I tell a lot of people when they ask about my journey, like, what was your lowest point?
Yeah.
It was actually when I hit that weight. When I hit
Interesting.
my goal weight of 185, I had lost over half my body weight. I'd lost over 100 pounds,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
I think that was at that point 175 pounds.
Yeah.
And that was like the worst day of my life.
Yeah.
And why? And people ask, like, why shouldn't you be happy? I was ecstatic when I saw that number. When I saw
Mhm.
185, I'm like, okay, I worked so hard. This was my goal
Yep.
weight. This is everything I've been dreaming of. Then I step off the scale and I look at my body in the mirror and I'm like, I could lose 10 more pounds. I don't like
Mhm.
the way I look, oh,
Yeah.
these influencers are 165 pounds. So, maybe I could lose 20 more pounds, then
Yeah.
I'll be happy. And
Yeah.
that is the key word that I realize now is
Yeah.
then I will be happy.
Yep.
And,
Yeah.
and that really discredited all the progress that I did.
Mhm.
I really went into, I wouldn't say a full-on depression episode, but a lot of grief of what I
Yeah.
thought meeting my goal weight would look like.
Yeah.
And, so often we think that meeting our goal weight is going to cure our confidence,
Uh-huh.
cure our self-love issues or
Yeah.
our traumas or our food eating issues.
Yeah.
Not the case at all.
No.
And that's where I try to tell people, like, a lot of the clients that I work with, I
Yeah.
see are more, and this is what I recommend to anybody trying to lose weight,
Yeah.
is be more lifestyle focused,
Mhm.
you know, because meeting non-scale victories, like being able to slide down a slide, being able to walk slash jog a 5K,
Huh?
being
Yeah.
able to zip line, which had a weight limit that I
I
exceeded.
remember that and seeing
Yeah.
that on your TikTok, and I was like, that's a lot of people like roller coasters or like amusement parks are
Yes. I
another
did.
really big one, like with their kids or on the swing set with their kids. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But,
Yeah.
be more that focused, because when
Yeah.
I think about the happiest times in my weight loss journey,
Yeah.
it was never standing on a scale.
Yeah.
Being able
That's
to
so well
say I
said.
climbed a mountain, being able to say I've zip lined, being able to say I've done all these really cool things that at 365 pounds, I would have never been able to do. That is more impactful. So, uh, yeah, that's, I
You've given
guess.
me like really good little nuggets, so I'm like jotting them down in case you're wondering why I'm like looking down. I'm not trying to distract
No,
you,
you're good. Hey, all good.
but yeah, I love the way you said that. That like thinking about the happiest moments in my weight loss journey is I was not standing on a scale. I think that's
Yeah,
just so beautifully, beautifully said because
yeah,
so often, I mean, I'm sure you see it in your clients. I definitely see it in mine. Like
yeah,
people get so fixated on that number on the scale, and it's like between 175 and 185, like that's 10 pounds. Like in 10
yeah,
years from now, are those 10 pounds going to matter? Like not at all. Right. Like
yeah.
honestly, like 2 years later, it didn't even matter because you had a baby. Right.
Yeah, right, right, and little did I know, man, I would freak out,
Yeah.
I think, looking back now, 2 years ago, if I woulda saw where I'm at now, I would freak out, but,
Yeah. Mhm.
and now I don't, because I was able to birth a very healthy baby girl.
Uh-huh.
I was able to have a very healthy pregnancy.
Yep.
I learned way more about myself than I ever would have imagined. I did a lot more healing
Yeah.
than, like, I feel like in my weight loss journey, I did a ton of therapy,
Yeah.
and I'm in school for addiction psychology.
Yep.
So just as uh, I did EMDR, it is a type of therapy. I have mom brain right now, so I can't tell you what it stands for, but anyone listening,
Eye movement desensitization
yes,
and reprocessing. And I know
yes.
that because I'm also doing EMDR. So
But like
we love
that,
EMDR. It is great.
yes, I can do a whole episode on EMDR, like
Yes.
how it can help cure eating disorders. Like I've
Yeah.
done so
It's
many
huge in the eating disorder
papers.
field.
I've done so many papers, like, why isn't this as like a standard care of treatment? But anyways,
I actually had a thought about that. I may need to chat with you once we stop
yes,
because I
yes,
had that thought too. I'm like, we need to bring this, but carry on. Yeah. So we did
yes.
EMDR and we healed ourselves and our relationships. And yes.
Yeah. And so, I had really thought, like, you know what? I dug out all the skeletons in the closet. Now I'm filling them with happy things and, coping skills. And, I've healed. And now, because before I got pregnant, I wasn't counting calories. I wasn't,
Yeah.
I had really reached a very content part of my life.
Yeah.
And so, I wasn't triggered to binge. I wasn't, as soon as I got pregnant, all those hormones flooding in. And then,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
no, won't go into too much detail, but I quickly learned I was going to be a single mom.
Yeah.
Moved back home from Denver, which I had a job I absolutely adored,
Yeah.
and I hated that I had to leave.
Yeah.
I moved away from Denver back to my home state, over 1,000 miles away. I drove all the way home.
I didn't realize you drove. Oh my.
Oh yeah, 9 weeks pregnant. 9 weeks
That
pregnant.
is a lengthy drive. Good for you.
Yeah. And just it was like a whole like Hallmark movie, like
Yeah.
here's everything. And then, coming back,
Oh.
all that grief.
Yeah.
I fell into prenatal depression.
Yeah.
And where I thought at first, like, and these are when we get into those ruts where those toxic thoughts start to come in, and when you
Mm.
don't have, when you're not ready to battle them off with your tools
Yeah.
and stuff, like
Yeah.
they quickly will overwhelm you and you
Yeah.
feel like you're drowning. And that's where I was. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll have nausea and I'll throw up and I'll
Ooh,
lose
yeah.
more pounds. Like, I was like, this is great. I can look good. I had
Audrey,
the
Audrey, Audrey.
exact opposite. And I know that was such an unhealthy thinking. I
Yeah.
had the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I had increased hunger.
Yep.
I only threw up once, and I think it was because I was anxious. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't due to like anything else. So like, I had some minor acid reflux in the morning, but in the
Yeah.
evening I had such intense hunger,
Yeah.
and I ended up seeing a dietitian
Good.
because I was like, I feel like I'm about to enter a binge restrict episode of like, I
Mhm.
am so hungry. How do I
Yeah.
satisfy this hunger and these new cravings? And then to add on that history of binge eating that just
Right.
creeped its way in. And
Right.
so my first trimester, I gained the bulk of my weight,
Yep.
which is the exact opposite as most people.
Yep.
And, I felt so down about myself. And I
Ah,
have to remember I am human on this journey. And so I ended up doing more therapy, met with a therapist twice a week,
love it.
really dug deeper. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I got through the closet. This time it was the basement.
Okay. Yeah.
It was the
I
attic.
love that.
Like those places you like know are there, but you're just not going to talk about it because like you don't go down in the basement, you don't go to the attic. Like,
Right.
that's just where I felt like I was. And so after healing that, I ended my pregnancy feeling on top of the world.
Good.
I weighed, I gained more weight than I should have, but I never knew my weight until I was 6 weeks postpartum.
And that's so important, I think, for people to hear is that like you like to an extent when you're pregnant, they do have to weigh you. Like that's
Yeah.
something because they're measuring not so much you, but like how much
Yeah.
baby is growing and things like that too. But
Yes.
you at any point in any healthcare setting, period, have the full autonomy to say, I don't want to see the number
Yeah.
and just step on the scale backwards, ask them not to tell you,
Yeah.
etc.
So
Which I'm assuming is what you did.
yeah, actually, I do take it back. I did know my weight the week before I gave birth,
Okay.
and I waited 6 weeks to weigh myself
Yeah.
after birth because I
Good.
told myself I'm not even going to think about calories. I'm not going to think about losing
Right.
weight. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm going
Yeah.
to, this is a hard transition. But
Yeah.
one thing I did, and if anybody is pregnant and you don't want to know your weight, that is triggering. I had a conversation with my doctor. She saw on my chart that I'd lost an extreme amount of weight.
Yeah.
And she had quickly learned, I'm gaining weight rapidly.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, she put in a referral for a dietitian.
Yeah.
Who actually had experience working with people who had eating disorders. So it was common for her
Glorious.
to not. So it was common for her to not show people their weight.
Yeah.
So that ended up working perfectly. And then my doctor just never printed off the after summary sheet for me. She never talked about my weight.
Yeah.
It was just something she said, unless I see that moving forward, you're gaining weight, maybe at on a very alarming rate,
Right.
then I will mention something, but you won't ever know a number. And she was right on. At the very end, I saw a nurse practitioner and she handed me an after visit summary. And I was like, oh, I really wish there was a better note in my chart that
Yeah.
lets you know, like, please don't talk about my BMI. Please don't talk about my weight.
Yeah.
Because at that point, there are times in your life, like I'm never saying neglect your health, but
Yeah.
there are times in your life where there are more important things than worrying about staying fit.
Oh yeah.
You
And
know,
pregnancy is absolutely one of them.
yeah. And, I was so jealous of people who were influencers, who were, 8 months pregnant, running, doing all those fun things. Cause I ran before I was pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I got pregnant, all my energy depleted,
Yeah.
between the depression,
Yeah.
life events, and then just pregnancy within itself. But being able to heal that last bit of my eating disorder, being able to heal, get rid of those cobwebs and things that I had tucked away for so long, those negative feelings about myself, I felt way more empowered
Yeah.
than I
Yeah.
did ever at my lowest weight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now when I'm fast forward, I'm 7 weeks postpartum, and now I'm on this journey again. I'm not doing anything restrictive.
Yeah.
I'm keeping a very body positive, empowering mentality. And it's not about the weight. It's just, I
Right.
want to feel good in my body. I want to get back to those same habits.
Yeah.
I know through this, I'll lose weight. Like that's just a given, but I'm not weight focused anymore.
Yeah. And like, I think that's so awesome. Cause I also heard you say kind of, before you were pregnant, like you weren't calorie tracking, like you kind of had a rough idea of how many
Yeah.
calories you were eating, but your body kind of just hovered. And it
Yeah.
sounds like, all right, I don't know if you're calorie tracking now, but even if
Yeah.
you are, it sounds like it's kind of like more in the back of your mind. Like, talk to me a little bit about kind of how freeing that feels, because it sounds like, if those things aren't taking up your headspace, like what does that clear up space for you to do?
Yeah. So I think when you realize like something my therapist and I had discussed, I don't know if it
Yeah.
was my therapist or dietitian actually,
One of us.
like it was just kind of like calories are kind of like this concept,
Hmm.
right? Like there are more to food
Yeah.
than calories.
Oh yeah.
And so when I thought of it like that, like, calories doesn't equate health, you know.
Right.
Um So, and when we had looked, um, when I had focused so much on calories, when I was in that binge restrict episode, all I was doing was just like neglecting myself even more and getting
Mhm.
myself further and further in that dark hole
Yeah.
of that, eating disorder, of that negative thinking, that depression.
Yeah.
But when you learn to let go and start to listen to your body, it is so freeing because your life no longer revolves around food.
Yeah.
You can
Mhm.
look at food and enjoy it. You can listen to your body. And that's where I really focused on, okay, what am I craving? What am I going to, what should my plate look like?
Mhm.
Okay, I got my protein, got my fiber, got my carb, got my fat. Okay, this should satisfy me. And
Mhm.
then if it didn't, then
Mhm.
I can have something else. And I'm not worrying about, oh, I'm over my calories now. And being able to just remind myself, I am
Yeah.
growing a human.
Yeah.
And our calorie needs change daily.
Yeah. They do.
Like
Oh
it
yeah.
is hard to know how much, like there's calculations and you're the expert in nutrition.
But
So
those are estimated guesses. Like it's
yeah,
never gonna be like there's nothing that we have, even like the like metabolic carts and stuff like that we do on
yeah,
like hospital patients. Like those are still just a snapshot. Like it's not
yeah.
gonna tell us like minute to minute, hour by hour what that patient needs, because we have like no way of knowing that.
But that's the thing is like all of these are like one size fits all.
Yeah,
Like, okay,
exactly.
here's these calculations, but then like, for example, breastfeeding,
Mm-hmm.
that adds, more energy. You're expending more energy. So you need more calories. So they estimate 500, but like you have to listen to your body because if you're hungry,
Yeah.
your body needs more energy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
technically speaking, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
but if you're hungry, your body needs more calories.
Most likely, yes.
So it's like if I've ate all my calories for the day and I'm still
Yes.
hungry,
Yeah.
I don't want to know or feel like I'm a failure.
No.
because my body is telling me I'm still hungry than
Yeah.
what my fitness pal is telling me my
Yeah.
body needs.
Yes. Yeah,
So
and I
being
tell people that all the time. And I think you said this earlier, and you phrased it better than I'm probably about to. But like, the calorie counters are really great for a tool. Like, they're really helpful to like build
yeah,
awareness, sometimes for accountability. But like, I usually don't have people calorie track for more than like a week or two at a time. And not, I mean, you can for longer than that, but it's just kind of, you
yeah,
don't have to be. You should not be so tied to that. Like, if you've
yeah,
eaten your calories and you're hungry, like, go eat, right? Because then
uh,
the calorie tracker is wrong, right? Like, and not in
yeah,
terms of like that's how many calories you probably eaten, that many calories, but in terms of what you need, like, that's not an appropriate number anymore. Um, and whether that may be like a that day thing, and it may be like we need to relook at these numbers because we missed something when we did the calculations. Because like,
yeah.
they're guesses at best. It's like trying to predict the weather. It's like, I don't know what these clouds are gonna do.
Well, and
Yeah.
nobody wants to count calories the rest of their life.
No.
So I think
Yeah.
learning how to find ways to satisfy your
Mhm.
cravings, satisfy your hunger,
Yeah.
nourish your body,
Yeah.
there's got to be another way than just
Mhm.
calories. And so that's really where I focus. And while
Yeah.
I'm counting calories now, I try to stay within a range.
Yeah.
So instead of doing like 1800 calories, like honestly, people get shocked
Yeah.
that like my calorie range right now, I try to go between, I have not, I say 1700 to
Mm.
2000, but
Yeah.
I've not gone anywhere. I'm usually about 1900 to 2000.
Yeah.
And I just shared on my TikTok
Yeah.
today. I'm doing this 4-day challenge, or 21-day challenge,
Uh,
getting back to the basics. I've ate probably 2000 calories every single day
yeah.
and I've lost a pound.
Yeah.
So, where people are like, oh, it's just a pound. And I'm like, you don't understand, like, to the diet culture, like,
Yeah.
I should have been eating 1200 calories
Right.
or
Right.
doing
And
something
like,
fast.
in 2000 calories, I think like that's like the other thing too that drives me nuts, is that we have this idea that like 1200, 1500 calories are like reasonable amounts. And like, well, she's only 6 weeks old right now, but like, she will soon need 1200 calories. Right?
Yes.
Like, they're completely unrealistic number. Like, 2000 calories is fine. And you're losing weight, like
Yeah.
you said. So,
I'm
um,
trying to think of how many calories, because like I think for like she eats at 800 calories a day.
yeah,
I don't know if that's correct. Like, so any,
I mean, that's probably right for
nutrition Nazis
that age.
watching
Yeah.
me right now, and they're like, your baby should not be eating 800. But I'm trying to think, like, if she, like, of the calorie, when I look on it, it's like per serving is this, and it's 100 calories. I'm
Yeah.
like, she's eating a serving 8 times a day. Like, I'm like,
Probably like 100 calories per 2 ounces is usual, or per 4 ounces,
yeah,
maybe. I don't
I
remember,
think
but
it's 4 ounces,
yeah.
4 or 5.
Um, but I mean, yeah, either way, like, and that's like, that's normal, right? Like, her body is literally going to double in size in like
Yes.
sheer months. Like,
Yeah.
it's wild. And even like your metabolism is still reacclimating to like it grew a whole human, and then it's like, okay, like, we gave all of the resources we had to the small human, and
Yeah.
like now we're gonna go back and like backfill a whole bunch of stuff that we basically didn't do or take care of because like we were too busy growing the small human. So,
Yeah.
like,
It's
it's
amazing what our bodies do and
yeah.
how it adapts and adjusts, and mentally, physically,
Yeah.
so many changes.
Yes. So many. And I think, yeah, so I think it's just like, it's so, it's so beautiful to kind of hear you in this place, because I think so many people, and like, a lot of my population are folks with eating disorders. Like, they're straight up scared to get pregnant because they're afraid of those body changes, right? Or like, they're afraid to get older, and like menopause and things like that kick in kind of on
Yeah.
the other end of the lifespan. And it's just kind of like, those are to an extent uncontrollable changes to your body, but they're not bad, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
normal to gain weight when you go through menopause. And that's like, again, your body is doing an incredible thing. Like, it is shutting down reproduction. Like,
Yeah.
if we think of like a factory shutting down, like, that's a pretty major thing, right? Like, it's going to
Yeah.
change a whole lot of how it functions. And it's just like, yeah, if we gain a couple of pounds in that, then like, oh well.
And because of course I overanalyzed myself and like, why am I gaining weight so easily? Like, why was this my
Mhm, mhm.
experience?
Yeah.
And, now I know that it was much more than a physical aspect, because I still had a very healthy, beautiful baby girl.
Yeah.
Um, but mentally I was able to transform. And like I
Mhm.
talked about earlier, heal some of that past wounds, being
Yeah.
able to now really show up as a mom, as a health coach,
Yeah.
as a person,
Yeah.
where I've learned through that. And it's like, okay, that I can add to
Mhm. Yeah.
my practice.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
even myself.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, it's just amazing what our bodies do and
Yeah.
how our bodies will always change. They're always adapting. They're always,
Mhm.
there's so many situations and our bodies. And just like when I lost weight, I wanted to lose weight in this area. I wanted to look like this in
Yeah.
this area. It wasn't anything like that. And that's the same
Right.
way with pregnancy. For a while I was so scared to take pictures and I was so
Oh,
embarrassed,
yeah.
because our society glorifies weight loss,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that glorification can get addicting.
Oh, yeah.
Being
Oh,
able to
yeah.
like people just talk to you like you're a celebrity, like you're this
Yeah.
queen of the world because
Yeah.
you lost, like I lost 180 pounds. And it's like,
Yeah.
I did nothing that you couldn't do.
Right.
There was
Right.
no magic pill. There was no magic like stamina. Like I could, I didn't fast for 40 days or,
Yeah.
anything like that. So it's like, when you go to a point where you do gain a little bit of weight,
Mhm.
people start treating you differently
Yeah.
and, look down upon you. And it's
Yeah.
like, that is where you really have to do that growth within and
Mhm.
realize that your journey is not going to look like anybody else's and your
Mhm.
journey may fluctuate.
Mhm.
But as long as you learn something from it and you
Yeah.
come out stronger
Yeah.
and healthier and
Mhm.
you're always nourishing your body, because, you know, I think as you have said before, it's better to eat than to not eat.
Oh, yeah. Like,
So,
eat like, I think we were talking about McDonald's when we first got on here. I was
yeah,
like, yeah, like, I would much rather you eat fast food than not eat. Like
exactly.
like,
And
please
so,
eat. Yeah.
yes. So it's like when you do all that, and then it's like, okay, then you can start to work on your health,
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, if you do, if you don't like where you're at, like for me, I don't necessarily like where I feel right now,
Sure.
like after being postpartum but it's not really the weight.
And
It's more so the habits that I'm doing now
yeah.
that are causing me to not feel so well.
Well, also, I would imagine, as you alluded to before, I would imagine you're a little tired.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Postpartum has a way of doing that.
Yes.
Especially, I mean, like, you're very freshly postpartum. I mean, like, this is like very, very new to you. So, like, your
Very.
whole world got turned upside down. You're still figuring it out. And, like, yeah, and your body's like not sleeping. Like, you are no longer your own priority. I would
Yeah.
imagine to an extent.
And it's funny because like I'll just try to make like what I eat in a day, and then I
Yeah.
quickly learn like I don't promote eating like I don't promote skipping breakfast. I
Yeah.
always try to eat breakfast. But
Yeah.
like now as a mom, it
Yeah.
is so easy to forget.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like or not really forget because you're like, I need to eat breakfast. It's 7 a.m.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
body's
Yeah.
starving. I need energy.
Yeah.
But then, my daughter needs something. And then I'm like, oh, she's finally napping. I can go shower real quick.
Yep.
And then it's laundry. And then it's this and that. And then all of a sudden it's 11:30. It's time for lunch. And so I'm like, man, I don't want to, I don't want to record this day. And people think that it's like, okay to skip lunch, but
Yeah.
and that's where, or skip breakfast. But that's
Right.
where then when I get to lunchtime and I'm hungry, then I'm eating a more nourishing or lunch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, oh, I skipped those calories, this
Mhm.
budget I had for breakfast. Like,
Mhm.
great, that's extra calories that I'll be in a deficit today. I don't do that. If
Yeah.
I accidentally don't eat breakfast, I'm making that up somewhere in the day.
Yeah. As you should. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of where like the counting of calories can sometimes be a little, because people almost like treat it like a bank account. And like the more you
Yeah.
save, the better it is. And it's just like, no, being like way under your calorie goal is actually
Yeah.
like bad.
I found when I am in a calorie deficit, I will always have my minimum.
Yep.
So like right now, my minimum is 1,700 calories.
Yep.
I need to eat at least
Yep.
1,700 calories, or I think it's 1,800. I think is technically my BMR, but then
Yeah.
given my activity level and whatnot,
Yeah.
but then I can still eat up to whatever I have for my goal, 2,000. So that's where I said eating in a calorie range and
Yeah.
giving yourself that flexibility
Yeah.
of like, I need to have a minimum amount of calories that I need to meet that
Mhm.
is going to nourish my body,
Yep.
give my body the energy it needs. And so I don't go into like a deprivation mode. And
Yeah.
that's where I found as a health coach, as helping people lose weight where they're coming from 1,200 calories. And it's like your body is so deprived of those
It is.
nutrients. No wonder why you're starving and you're
Yeah.
not losing weight.
Yeah. And probably exhausted and cranky and several other things that,
Yeah.
it's yeah. And I love that you're talking about ranges because that's how exactly how I coach it too. I'm like you like if there's gotta be like there's always that like minimum of like whatever your
Yeah.
BMR is, like that's always what I set the minimum. It sounds like that's what you're doing too.
Yeah.
And like and then you kind of have a range because I think that's again, people get so obsessed about those numbers being right on the no and like it just does not matter that much. Like
Yeah.
it truly
No.
does not. And
No.
like and you can blow the whole thing too because like you're probably it depends how you calculate your deficit, but like if you're at say like a 500 calorie deficit from your maintenance, like you can go over your goal by 500 calories and still
Yeah.
be in a deficit, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like you may even like even on days where you like overeat, you may just be eating
Yeah.
at your maintenance level, but we also don't like there's something your body's telling you it's hungry, so like yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I learned is you have to eat 3,000 calories over your maintenance to
Yeah,
even gain a single pound of fat.
exactly. Yeah.
And so, and that's one thing I learned in my postpartum journey. I'm not
Yeah.
weighing myself every day, focusing on water, focusing just on being in a right mindset
Yeah.
of, keeping my focus on good health, not a
Mhm.
number on the scale,
Yeah.
focusing on building good habits that are sustainable. These quick fixes that people talk about, they're not quick fixes. Really, it's just the diet culture saying, how can I get more money out of you? How
Yeah.
can I make you feel like crap so I can keep you in this cycle?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I think it's like and it's just so interesting to kind of hear your dialogue around it because I think anybody who's kind of like addressed an eating disorder, like to an extent, kind of has like something that happens, whether it's a pregnancy or whatever, to where like they feel like they're okay. And then like all of a sudden
Yeah.
something challenges that. And like for some people, it's like coming out of a treatment center and like all of a sudden you're in the real world and there's all this
Yeah.
diet culture talk that you're like inundated by, right? And they're just like, like they almost like freeze up because like in the treatment facility, it's a kind of this nice little like insular place where like
Yeah.
diet culture just doesn't exist and we all just get to eat and be
Yeah.
happy. But then you go out into the real world and there's all this pressure. And I think a lot of times people really underestimate like how intense that pressure can be.
Yeah.
And like you said, like kind of like when you started gaining, especially when you're pregnant, because like sometimes like
Yeah.
you're gaining weight, but like you don't want to tell people why.
Yeah.
In those early stages. And it's actually very common to gain weight like early. Like it's a lot of women really freak out about that. But like like some people do gain a substantial amount of weight just in their early pregnancy. And
Yeah.
then like they just don't gain a much and later on.
Yeah.
And it's like I'll say it's atypical in terms of like that's not how it always happens, but it's like it's perfectly normal and perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
Um or like some people like their face kind of fills out and that's kind of like a thing that they're self-conscious
Mhm.
about because it's noticeable. But it's just like it's wild how like society can like make you then basically like you felt so good you weren't even like
Yeah.
counting calories and then now it's like I feel like dirt again.
Yeah.
It's
And it's interesting. So working at an eating disorder unit,
mhm.
nobody ever in the break room talked about diets.
Yeah.
A lot of people who worked there had recovered from eating
Yeah.
disorders, and then of course you're working with eating disorder patients. And so it just was never a topic. And it was
Yeah.
amazing to talk about hobbies, what's going on in the news,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
talking about other things in life besides
Mhm.
dieting. And then I go back, back to my hometown.
Yeah.
I'm working in the hospital. And what does everybody talk about? Weight Watchers, keto.
Mhm.
Oh, I
Mhm.
can't have bread. I'm going to intermittent fast. And it was it was in a way really triggering because,
Yeah.
everyone's focused on losing weight and I was gaining weight,
Mhm.
which I kept telling myself, I'm growing a human, doing, I'm still doing great. It doesn't discredit the work that I've done.
Right.
Um, and I kept saying, they quit talking about diets around me because I told them they were all going to develop eating disorders. Skipping breakfast and lunch to save for dinner because they're going to a Mexican restaurant. I
Oh,
was like, that is so unhealthy. Like,
so that is very unhealthy.
but you know what I mean? Like, I just saw all these like disordered eating, and after working where I had seen where that can lead, like
Yeah.
I just have tried. I feel like that has helped me promote the importance of a balanced diet,
Hmm.
importance of still incorporating those foods, still nourishing your bodies, because
Hmm.
no, but like, and I still see that those coworkers still haven't lost weight
Right.
and they're still in the same
Right.
spot. And I think of that to my family members who want to do those crazy cleanses
Yeah.
or the keto diets or whatnot.
Yeah.
How often do they end up in the same position, or that didn't work for me, but I'm going to do something else,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, because like being a dietitian and working like amongst other, like pretty much all dietitians that I know are like anti-diet kind of by default. Like we all get
Yeah.
irritated by like diet culture. We all get
Yeah.
like really annoyed by like all the like, quick. So like when we sit down and have conversations, even if the conversation is about food, it's like, what are you eating? That looks really good. Tell me about the rest. You know what I mean? Like it's like a joyful
Yeah.
conversation around food. Other than that, it's exactly like you said. We talk about hobbies. Like we don't
Yeah.
talk about, and it's like I almost like I forget until I'm around like other professionals, and I'm just like, wow, this really takes up a lot of brain space
Yeah.
for you all. Like it
Public
is.
service, yeah.
Yeah.
Public service announcement, you
Yeah.
can talk about the taste of a food without mentioning its calories.
Yes. You exactly. Like you can talk about like, wow, this like, I don't know, I think it was lasagna or something that somebody made. I'm like, that looks so good.
Yeah,
Like, please
yeah,
tell me more about how you made it. Um,
yeah,
it's yeah, and it's all like anybody who's like been through like recovery from an eating disorder, or like even like worked in kind of like an eating disorder intensive environments, like you kind of come out into the rest of the world and you're just like almost like taken aback. I am
yes.
sometimes, and it's just like, wow, that's like, and it is triggering. And I think it's so, one of the things that frustrates me the most is that like I see so many eating disorders of people who come into my clinic wanting to lose weight, and it's like, we got to deal with some other stuff first. And
Yeah,
it's just like, but it's so normalized and like you said, like
yeah,
praised. And it's just, like we don't recognize it as disordered because it's like,
yeah,
well, this is what everybody does.
yeah. I've turned down clients
Mhm.
who, um, I follow a scale to
Yeah.
try to determine, I am not in a profession or licensure to diagnose an eating disorder.
Sure.
So I'm not trying to claim that I do, but I do look for the risks.
Yeah.
'Cause, the,
Yeah.
the last thing I ever want to do is promote somebody's eating disorder.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
I'm always going to aid on the side of caution that, you know what? And I did this with a friend. I think I
Mhm.
recommended to you,
Yeah.
because it was like, I cared about them a lot
Yeah.
and I knew their history,
Mhm.
and they wanted to work with me, and they wanted to come with such a positive mindset.
Yeah.
But, there was a lot of triggers where I'm just like, I just don't think I'm the right person for
Yeah.
you. I
Yeah.
want to help and support you,
Yeah.
but I don't want to cause any triggers or cause you to go down a rabbit hole that you don't really need to.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some people, again, weight loss is so glorified.
Yeah.
And so anybody asking to lose weight,
Yeah.
they're going to be like, yes, sign me up. And that's
Mhm.
where, I feel we need to assess health, overall
Yes.
health, physical and mental included,
Mhm. Mhm.
over weight loss, or, a number on a scale.
Yeah. And I think it's so sad too, because I mean, like, obviously hearing you talk, like you're a very responsible practitioner, like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and there's going to be times like eating disorders are sneaky. So like anybody out here who's like
Oh,
listening
yeah.
is like a baby dietitian or something like that, like you do get a sense of it at the longer you're in the field. But also, I mean, like there's
Yeah.
going to be times where you miss the mark, and it's truly not your fault. Like you do everything in your power, but like that person's just hiding behaviors from you, and like there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
All you can do is like, try to sniff it out and use your best clinical judgment. And honestly, that like this feels icky factor, like there's not really a technical term for it, but it's just kind of
Yeah.
like trust your gut on that. That's
Yeah.
always like the thing I go back to, and you will kind of, learn the difference as you go.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people out there making a lot of money who will shamelessly take advantage of that.
Yeah.
and whether they know they're taking advantage of it, whether or not they know they're causing harm, like honestly, I like to believe in the good in people sometimes. Um, and
It's harder to do every day.
yeah, and so like I genuinely think some of them don't recognize the harm that they're
Yeah.
causing, but it's so harmful. And I think for me as a professional with a license that I pay for, it's so frustrating to feel like that
Yeah.
license does exactly nothing to protect the public.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're in a similar field. So it's
Yeah.
like,
And that's something I always think about and I'm always mindful about,
Mhm.
because even when I graduate and I get licensed, I'm only licensed in my state.
Yeah,
So, there are so many people who are, who claim to be a certified nutritionist, certified fitness coach. And it's like people can spew out words like, no hate to chiropractors, but when you have chiropractors saying that this is the right way, but I'm a chiropractor, I'm a certified nutritionist, I'm a certified this, like, the certifications are BS,
they are.
really. Like, anybody can create a certification program.
Yes.
Anybody can get, you know, put letters behind their name. Like,
Right.
you can get degrees. Like I can get, my degree will be psychology and addiction studies, but I'm not going to say that I'm like a, addiction psychologist. And,
Yeah.
I'm going to
You
say,
might someday, but you're not the
yeah,
day
yeah,
you
yeah.
graduate.
But, but I'm not
Yeah.
going to sit here and give people, I don't know. I don't know for, I don't know the right example, but, I'm not going to give people car advice. That's
Yeah.
kind of what it feels like,
Well, and I use that example all the time is that like you wouldn't want a surgeon to fix your car. You wouldn't want a mechanic to operate on your heart. Like there's
Yes.
a very, and like both of those are very valid fields. One makes a
Yeah.
little bit more money than the other, but like,
Yeah.
it's like they both have their specialties and they both need to just kind of stay in their lane. And I think
Yes. But
in
so,
healthcare, it gets a little muddier, but I
yeah.
also feel like that's where it's on the practitioner to, because I know plenty of dietitians who won't treat people with eating disorders because they
Yes.
themselves know that like I don't have the skill set I need to do this
Yes.
properly.
Yeah.
And that's, so even people with credentials sometimes
And I
don't
always
have the
respect
skill
it.
set that they need or the experience to do it right. Um,
It is so highly respectable,
mhm.
seeing people stay within their scope of
Yeah.
practice. And,
Mhm.
and that's where in my coaching,
Mhm.
my goal is to help you build sustainable habits, to give,
Yeah.
to do the calculations with you, to give you these meal recommendations,
Yeah.
these fitness recommendations, but I'm not prescribing anything,
Right. Right.
whereas then I think there's a lot of toxic nutritionists who come out and say, oh, I'm an expert in this field. And it's like Google Scholar doesn't count,
Right. No.
or
You need
this
degrees and formal
certified
training
nutritionist,
and
nutritional
yeah,
holistic academy that you got, you paid 30.
whatever like regard like online course you took that
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's not, yeah, and I think it's well, and like just to stay a registered, like first of all, to be a registered dietitian, it's a minimum of a master's level educational degree plus
Yeah.
1,200 hours of supervised practice, which I know for like therapy, it's pretty
Yeah.
similar. Um, and then you have to do 75 hours of like continuing education credits every 5 years, which like so that's like 15 hours a year, which most people do more than that.
Yeah.
So I mean like it's constant like keeping up on things, but and then like kind of on our end too, it's like I know the nutrition side of things, but like when it comes to like deeply seated trauma and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff, I'm just like, look, I can help you like a little bit with stress management maybe, but like outside of
Yeah.
that, like we got to go to therapy. Like
Yeah.
it is not. And like that for my practice, like I won't see eating disorder patients unless they're already established with the therapist
That's
too. Cause I
awesome.
think it's like the nutrition is like honestly like kind of a symptom of it a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's not the whole cause. And it takes collaboration too. I always try to get those therapists to like have joint sessions and things
Yeah.
like that because I think it's so important. That a collaboration factor is so important
Yes.
for
This
um
topic is definitely a rabbit hole I could like go
yeah.
down on. Like, just give me the TED Talk microphone.
Yes. Well, and we were talking about how the American healthcare system makes that like super difficult
Yes.
for practitioners to even like talk to each other even when they want
Yes.
to. It can be frustrating for sure.
Yes.
Um which is, yeah, I think we could go down a rabbit hole all day.
I know,
But
I'm thinking like, wow, we could just talk all day about this one.
we could. Maybe we'll do a second. We'll do like a follow-up episode
There we
on
go.
like things we hate about American healthcare and the
Yeah.
reason why eating disorders fall through the cracks.
Yes. Not all weight loss is good weight loss.
No. And oh my gosh, sometimes, we have patients who they're like, and I think that's the other thing people don't realize, that you can be like obese, like clinically obese, and still be malnourished.
Yeah.
Like people don't understand that. And it's like, no, like their kidneys are shutting down.
Yeah.
We need to do something about this. And doctors even half the time like don't even fully understand it. They're like, well, what are you talking about? Like they're fine. Like they're not fine.
Yeah.
They're not fine.
Yeah. Nothing about this situation is good.
No, nothing. But anyway, that was a mild tangent. We'll
Yes.
circle it back. But I'm looking at kind of like my notes and things like that. I mean, honestly, I think we kind of covered most of the hard hitting points of kind of, your journey and kind of, how you've kind of managed postpartum to mitigate
Yeah.
some of those thoughts and things like that. Any final things, anything that we didn't talk about, last minute elevator pitch, anything like that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to kind of go through.
I think the only thing I'm gonna, that really comes to mind that I just talked about on my own personal pages
Yeah.
is just reiterating that you cannot hate yourself into
Yeah.
a body, a body you love, a person you love, you know, coming at weight loss or self-acceptance, self-love is all going to come from loving yourself now,
Yep.
learning how to nourish your body, learning how to appreciate your body now. And so, and I think if you start thinking, you really want to ditch that mindset of I'll love myself when I'm 10 pounds less.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'll love myself when I go to the gym every day. Now, if you have truly a burning desire to go to the gym, and that's going to be something that's empowering, by all means, I want to encourage you to do that.
Yes.
But if going to the gym sounds dreadful and at the end of the year, you'll just be, donating money, it's not worth it. It's not worth signing that commitment.
Yeah.
Find something else.
Yeah.
I found walking, I found hiking.
Yeah.
There's tennis. There's literally yoga, stretching. I count stretching as a workout because it's doing something great for your body.
Yeah.
And that is where I guess, make sure you're creating a journey you love, the life you love that is going to be sustainable. And when you're thinking of losing weight, I want you to think to yourself, is this something I can do 10 years from now?
Yeah.
And if that kind of life sounds dreadful to you, don't do it.
Yeah.
There's other ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I could not have said that better. I love this. Like you have, because all of our changes need to come from love in general.
Yes.
Like we don't change for the people we love because we hate them. We change for the people we love because we love them. Right. And your
Yes.
relationship with yourself is the exact same way. I love that. I think that's such a beautiful way to kind of wrap it up. I know we've been chit-chatting for a while now.
I know, it's okay. We can like chit chat. I feel like we could just like talk all night long. Like
we absolutely could. We probably need some Oreos and some ice cream or something to like get us through it, but that would be just fine. But I just want to say thank you so much for coming on here, everybody listening. We will have all of Audrey's information. I'll get your website link and your socials and all that good fun stuff in the show notes and everything below that. But thank you so much for your time and attention. And we probably will do a second episode if you're down for it.
So down.
Yeah.